Alrighty then. So yeah, yesterday we got that 25 basis points hike. Some have described it as quite dovish, while we had some expectations about 50 basis points. Some recommended a hold. Well, let's talk to Dr. Bala Keffi now, MNI. She's acting director, Monetary Policy Department at the Central Bank of Nigeria, joining me from our Abuja studio. Great to have you.
Good afternoon, Ladi.
Good afternoon. Great to have you. So we know most economists polled by Bloomberg, they expected a 50 basis points hike. Why was this a dovish hike?
Yes, I believe you want to know the reasons why the MPC members increased MPR rate just by 25 basis points, and it's largely due to we looked at the MPC members wanted to give time for the past hikes to start taking effect, because between the time that you raise rates and the time that you start seeing the impact, there is usually a lag period. In Nigeria, from the studies we have undertaken in the bank, the results we got is that it would take about 150 days, 3 to 6 months or thereabout, for us to see the effect of our monetary policy transmission. So we have been hiking consistently. So we thought, let's take a slightly dovish stance to see the overall impact as we move forward at the appropriate time. And also, the MPC members were also mindful of the current economic environment in the country, the macroeconomic fundamentals, and the welfare of citizens. If you see in the communique, that was mentioned clearly in the first paragraph of the communique, whereby the chairman of the MPC committee, Mr. Olayemi Cardoso, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, mentioned that the welfare of citizens and the income of Nigerians was the bank is very mindful of that. So with that in mind, that's why that stance was taken, basically.
All right, so with this 25 basis points hike, would you say the MPC still have more wiggle room to raise rates further if inflation still stays stubbornly high?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The commitment of the MPC members to ensuring that inflation trends downwards is unwavered. They are committed to ensuring that price stability, which is having a sustainable inflation rate that will be commensurate to growth and sustainable economic growth. And in view of that, the members of the committee will do whatever it takes to ensure that inflation is reined in. So if we continue seeing the conditions like excess liquidity in the system or heightened increase in currency outside circulation, they will do the needful. They will take the necessary action that they required to ensure that inflation is reined in. Because having high inflation is very inimical to the economy. It will affect all cadres, not only people at the lower echelon, even the middle class, and even the higher class. Everybody will be affected. So the monster in the room is inflation. In that regard, whatever the MPC members and the management of the central bank would do to ensure that inflation is reined in, they will do it. If it is a hike, it would happen. But we go by numbers, we go by empirical evidence available to us, we go by data, and this was the last MPC for the year. Hopefully, in January, we will also monitor the situation, and as usual, based on empirical evidence in front of the management, which the team in the central bank will present to them. They will take a decision whether to cut or to hike. If there is need to hike, they would hike. Whatever it takes to bring down inflation, that is the path that the MPC members would take.
All right, thank you so much for that. But I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to take a quick break now. When we come back, we're going to dive into what to expect for monetary policy. I'm still going to have with me Dr. Ladi Bala Keffi. We'll take a quick break now. Just stay with us. Welcome back, and we're still talking monetary policy, and I still have with me Dr. Ladi Bala Keffi, MNI. She's an acting director, Monetary Policy Department at the Central Bank of Nigeria. Thank you for staying on. And, definitely, we've heard from economists and a couple of experts in Nigeria saying that Nigerian businesses can't take another hike, that this time they're bleeding, at this point. So how is the Monetary Policy Department and the committee looking to balance this trade-off between growth and tackling inflation going into 2025?
Thank you for that question. You see, I think when your opening statement, you did mention that central banks, if you look at the global picture, central banks in advanced economies are cutting rates. But if you look at the period in which they hiked rates until they reached a comfortable level, you will understand that the central bank, we haven't even done anything yet. The advanced economies like the US, the UK, the ECB, they kept their rates high. They kept on hiking for several months. For example, I think is it the United States hiked for, they were one, is it the UK or hiked for 17 months? It took a while before they started cutting rates until they were comfortable. Every central bank monitors macroeconomic fundamentals, and based on that, they will take a decision if it is necessary for them to trade off growth, to rein in inflation, or to pursue growth and allow inflation to go haywire. Moderating both at the same time can be very tricky and is quite difficult. But if you look at where the Central Bank of Nigeria was coming from, we had excess liquidity in the system. We had ways and means of over 30 trillion, which some of these amounts are still out there in the system. So already the backlog inherited was quite enormous. So trying to rein in inflation now, we had to do based on the evidence in front of the MPC committee. The decision to whether to hike and now focus on reining in inflation was taken. Now, to let you know some quick wins that we've had as a result of the hike. And these quick wins will be things that will eventually stabilize the economy in the medium to long term. For example, since this management of the central bank and the MPC committee took over, we have witnessed enormous inflows into the economy. If you look at from inflows increased to 8.42 billion in September 2024 from 5.72 billion in August 2024. And that is remarkable. And I'll even tell you quickly that a single individual in the diaspora, due to the active drive for diaspora remittances into the country, and for the credibility that the current management and MPC team have introduced, the transparency with the data constantly and consistently, people are beginning to have more confidence in the economy. Foreign investors are beginning to have more confidence in the economy, and thereby we are getting more inflows, foreign exchange into the country. One individual brought in over $1 billion into the economy between September and October. One individual. We got an inflow to that quantum. And currently, the reserves stood at just over 40 billion as at in October 2024. And this was largely due to the positive impact of the bank's remittances policy. The bank has introduced IMTOs, and aside from that, the management of the bank itself has gone on intense drive to attract inflows, especially that of Nigerians in the diaspora. The central bank partnered with the NIBS, Nigerian Interbank Settlement System, and meetings were held, stakeholders meetings, town hall meetings were held in targeted states in the United States, such as Houston and DC, on the side of the IMF World Bank annual meetings. And we started seeing the results. Following the end of the annual meetings, we have received up to 0.34 billion, largely due to the aggressive drive of the management to attract remittances. And this has brought relative stability to the exchange rate, which was otherwise volatile before.
Okay.
So we have recorded tremendous successes. The current account balance has recorded a higher surplus. We've recorded even growth. There is an uptick in growth. If you look at the figure from the National Bureau of Statistics, you will see that growth has increased. The overall BOP, balance of payment, in Q3 recorded a surplus of $3.79 billion compared with a surplus of $2.47 billion in Q2. So all these are, and there's been an improvement in the external reserves. Now we have about 13 months of import cover of reserves. So we have been recording some successes, and that can answer your question to why we took a slightly dovish stance. I wouldn't say the stance was dovish, because you can see we didn't cut the other indicators. It was just the MPR. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, and bringing us up to speed on some of the wins there from the management, and thank you for bringing back the data publications too. We've been seeing the CBN PMI data, and thank you. That's really helped our reporting, so far. But seeing that inflationary pressures mostly caused by rising energy costs and food prices, how's the monetary policy seeing the issues of high PMS prices and the whole drama with Nigeria refining its own oil and Nigerians begging for lower PMS prices? How are you looking at all of that?
Thank you for that question. Actually, if you look at the course of this inflation, you will see that core inflation has been consistently going up and driven mostly by cost of energy. And this can largely be attributed to the continuous hikes in the PMS price. And this is really distorting effective transmission of our monetary policy. We need to understand that the monetary policy cannot address all the issues. Monetary policy alone cannot even tame inflation, because there are structural issues in the economy. Food is a major component of the inflation basket in Nigeria. And food prices have been going up. This can be attributed to a lot of structural issues, which includes insecurity in the country. Although we know that the federal government has recorded intense, and the Nigerian military, they've recorded intense gains in that space, as we can see that the banditry efforts have been curtailed. Nevertheless, it still has some impact on food production, because the areas where these events occur are predominantly the food producing area in the northeast and the northwest of the country. So once insecurity can be tackled, absolutely, we will see changes. It has affected production of food, and even legitimate export of food. Why I'm saying legitimate is because there's been a lot of smuggling. We have from processing natural language on the social media, and from gathering information through surveys, we've discovered that the middlemen activities are quite in the increase, and they distort the whole stability of food prices. There's hoarding of grains in some areas, and all these are contributing to inflationary pressures. And these are things that monetary tools cannot address. We can only collaborate with the fiscal authorities, and that collaboration, we've been strengthening it. And it so happens that the permanent secretary is on the MPC committee. So we also have committees where we meet to address these issues. There's been some, for example, I believe farm produce recorded some gains, and that can largely be attributed to the efforts of the federal government, because the federal government, they've been putting security, ensuring that there's security in these areas, and also distribution of fertilizer. If you can remember some time back, indeed, the central bank donated fertilizer to the federal government just to play our own role in trying to ensure that the agri sector, which is very critical to the inflation basket, is stable.
All right, thank you so much. And definitely we hope most of these rates come down by 2025, and also that inflation, stubborn high inflation, also comes down too. Thank you so much, Dr. Ladi Bala Keffi. She's Acting Director, Monetary Policy Department at the Central Bank of Nigeria. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Yes, just to have a last word, I'd like to reassure the audience that the management of the Central Bank of Nigeria, as well as the members of the MPC, are committed to reining in inflation and ensuring price stability, and they will do whatever it takes to ensure that this inflation is reined in. And they are also, the governor is very passionate about financial inclusion. And if you, I'm sure as you're in the media, you know that there was a financial inclusion conference sometime last month, this month actually, just a couple of weeks back, where we launched the WIFI for women economic empowerment,
right,
poverty alleviation. Yes. So please just. The take home here is that the Central Bank of Nigeria is mindful of the current economic situation and the role that inflation plays, and are ready to take whatever steps to rein that in. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the assurance. Thank you so much for coming out today.